with various psychological conditions, there are underlying causes for those conditions, such as people having massive delusions. Would you say there's an underlying cause for magical thinking in that way?
Yes, absolutely. I think if I had to explain our project in short, I would say it shows the link of how ideals and existential beliefs can lead to a cognitive instability. There are many people that we know that at first had it sound like a stable mind until they entered spiritual beliefs mixed with ideologies and religious thinking, and then they became more and more unstable. It's really shocking. I'm not saying everything is like this, everything and everyone is like this or it can happen to them, but it seems to increase the potential, and it's mainly because a person is not really investigating or questioning their beliefs and the relationship they have with them, or even why they think they need them. I think we need to explore this rather than saying that mental instability is always just a chemical imbalance, or like most people tend to argue, there is a link. And right now, a lot of people are not able to see that link between beliefs and mental instability. And so they either disregard it or get upset just thinking about it. And this is something we really want to show with our project.
Well, I think, sorry for the thunder. Moment. I think we have to be a little bit more precise when we want to discuss about mental illness. We are not saying that mental illness is not caused by chemical and neurological imbalances or something like neurologically wrong. We have to say that mental illness is very often caused by neurological defections, or such as a lack of dopamine or serotonin, and whatever that is. We should not deny that. And also, I will not approach really the clinical aspect of that, since we are not like doctors or psychologists. But we can see something like that when a person struggles because the person, let's suppose that the person is Christian, or the person is struggling with the plenty of completely nonsensical concerns created by the so-called the New Age movement or spirituality, such as, for example, the person is deeply struggling because the person believes not to be a good Christian, not to be a good Christian enough, or the person that believes in the so-called spirit guidance or spirit guides perceives actually, which is the reality, that that person is not really in touch with such things, and therefore the person, out of a continuous process of influences coming perhaps by stuff online or like friends and so on, the person greatly suffers because the person does the best the person can to achieve, to establish some sort of contact with the so-called spirit guides or Jesus Christ, but the person just can't, because that's not reality, that's believing. Nevertheless, the person can develop a form of something goes slightly neurotic or psychotic, not necessarily in the long run, and then it can actually becomes mental illness, which yes is going to affect the chemistry of the brain, no doubt about that. But what we are saying that in a case like that, the very origin of the mental disorder and the eventual mental illness is not really caused originally by neurological defection, but is caused by a system of believing, and this is a fact. For example, I spent many years in places like Bali or like Indonesia or India that are considered homeland for the spirituality and all this sort of stuff. And I really come across several people that were not really mentally ill, I have to say, but profoundly disturbed because of this confusion, especially in the New Age way. Can we say that a jihadist meaning an extremist Islamic person willing to kill other people, believing, because the person believes in most crazy stuff, such as the 72 virgins after this life, if you behave that way. Can we really say that that is is caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain? I don't think so, because that's caused by the whole process of crazy indoctrination the person went through, and so on. Now, we should not really be ashamed to inquire and to expose the actual dangerousness and to study it. The dangerousness of living through ideological belief systems, whether it be faith, spirituality, or big macro ideological beliefs such as nationalism, all this sort of stuff, including racism, if we like. The question is, what will happen in terms of increase or decreasing, or increasing or decreasing of mental disorders if we had an education pivoted and based on those terms, like analysis of why a person comes to believe in this and that, and the whole structure of neurotic thinking that very often, not rarely at all, comes into being because of that. What will be the actual statistic decreasing of mental disorders if we had an education like that? I'm sure that there will be certainly a significant, impressive decreasing of mental disorders. Not completely, of course. Of course, when people have chemical problems, but surely there will be a dramatic decreasing of mental disorders and therefore also mental illness.
Or the Christian struggling because they believe they are not good enough Christian, or they have suicidal thoughts. And they have been indoctrinated with the idea that suicidal thoughts are a sin, so God is surely angry with them. So it's kind of a vicious circle that they cannot possibly get out of, because it just fluctuates back and forth with this constant frustration without ever daring to question what it is that I'm actually struggling about. So to be able to see that our solution, in that case, God and his ideals, which are human inventions, is also the problem that keeps one stuck in the vicious cycle. They cannot see this, and it's just an idea, and because of that, it creates so much frustration and psychological stress that it does lead to a sort of a cognitive instability, unfortunately.
Well, to say that, let's say in a bombastic way, but it's actually the truth, that to say that religion is a form of mental illness is not really the clinical form of it. I'm not talking about people get really mad. I'm not saying that people get mad when they become religious, but historically speaking, looking at the whole countless numbers of absurdities and actual absurdity caused by faith thinking or spiritual thinking, we should not be ashamed to actually declare those particular states of mind and the organized aspect of them as a form of like personal and collective mental illness. And this is not about like talking about the freedom of religion, all this sort of stuff. We really, there is a sort of taboo when it comes to debate about these things, because people are afraid to speak out, and most of the time people just do not know what to say. So it is not really an opinion or an idea, but it is a fact that the so-called spirituality is a form of mental illness. The idea that a crystal can possibly somehow heal the so-called soul, or even my body, or even cancer or a disease, is a form of mental illness. We are not just talking about credulity, because credulity is just a form of ingenuousness that can be dissipated with a right education and a powerful act of questioning. But we are talking about people that even when they have that, even when they are well educated, they actually persist some sort of like in somehow through this some sort of compulsory way. Is just like a compulsion. So not clinically, I repeat, but I repeat, we should not be ashamed to declare bombastically, yes, but that all of these patterns in our psychology are a form of mental illness, and they do produce mental illness. The mental institutions in Bali, in Indonesia, the island, in which all sort of like new agey spiritual retreats are taking place all the time, super expensive by the way, the mental institutions there are full of people that went there with the intention to participate in whatever form of like healing this, healing that, and then they ended up in a mental institution in a place that the third world is not really pleasant. To be in a mental institution in that place is not pleasant in general, but especially in the third world.
So even when they are struggling and they look for solutions within their beliefs, a Christian will look for the solution with a Christian counselor, or a spiritual person will look for a solution with a spiritual healer, or a psychic, a shaman, so they can continue to protect and feed the illness in this way, rather than looking for help outside of their beliefs.
We used to see also something that we recently made a video about, like reading some sarcastically love letters, but are actually hate letters we constantly receive. Now we have to say something. Of course, we should not. Sorry, let me phrase it this way: a credulous person is not supposed to be justified just because the person is credulous, maybe because of a lack of education, or maybe because even when the person has a sufficient education, the person ingenuously believes in the most crazy things. We can say that credulity, unfortunately, is a very widespread phenomenology. It's not surely supposed to be something to be used to justify a person saying, but that's what it means to be human, all this sort of stuff. Credulity is a serious problem. It can be, let me use this word, healed through reason, skepticism, questioning, analysis, testing, counter-testing, making the person think. But the serious problem is that we do not really have an interest to realize, neither to debate about when and how quickly and how easily a system of credulous thinking can actually result in a form of like personal or collective mental illness. We had letters that a person that comes to my mind now wrote me personally saying that I should not say that the Bigfoots are not real, because if I say that, I must be a gay and even mentally ill. I do not understand what the link is between being gay and saying that the Bigfoots are not real. First of all, I never said that in a public way. I had a discussion about that topic because this person, for some personal reasons, is obsessed with the existence of the Bigfoots. But so far we have no evidences whatsoever that the Bigfoots are real. We have a little bit of mythology coming mostly from North America and the Yeti in Central Asia. But it's just a mythology. There is the famous picture of some sort of like big monkey-shaped being walking in a forest, but that picture proves a perfect nothing, because it could be a joke, it could be like a matter of perspective, maybe it was a monkey, but because of the angle of the camera looks like... So there's not an evidence, there's just a picture of something that was walking in the forest, which most likely was an attempt to create a scoop, since that picture is, I believe, belongs to the 70s, and at that time was not so popular to come across like photoshopped pictures that was not even Photoshop, but or pictures intentionally made to make people believe in the stuff.
So how do people get the link that Bigfoot and gay? How does that happen?
But the stuff, so you know, it's not. This is not just about stupidity, because we are talking about people that are most likely connected with the internet all the time, and they are basically educated. So we are not talking about profound ignorance, superstitious ignorance. We're talking about so-called normal citizens. They develop these ideas, so and then really they become strangely neurotic because of these ideas, and can become a monomania or a form of like compulsive obsession and so on. So also this stuff about this person with the story with the Bigfoot, perhaps it sounds like funny, and it is a little bit funny, but we are talking about a young person, and I wonder what will happen if when the person will become progressively older and older, and will never question, will never drop this absurd obsession. Most likely a person like that will develop some maybe embryonic or maybe manifested state of mental illness, which is why educative prevention is so dramatically important, especially today.
I also want to just add that it's not just beliefs themselves, it's also the relationship we have with the beliefs, as well as our identification with them too, that create the problems as well.
But the fact that the belief, the question, which is a question that's supposed to be in the field of education but is not, is why do we have, let me use the expression, existential beliefs? And another question, do we really need existential beliefs at all? I'm talking about, God, the meaning of life, the soul, the Bigfoot, some sort of spirit realm. Let me say something. Even if science in the future will find evidence that something that could be called the spirit world or whatever we would like to call it, something like that does exist. Whatever, I don't want to debate much about that, but let's say something like that as in terms of like science fiction fanciful hypothesis. And my approach will be, so what? So is the knowledge that a Bigfoot does exist, is that knowledge capable to make me reason about my structure of credulity and my confusions? I really don't think so. Not at all.